Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sandy Frank's political podcast for a people's revolution against the corporate fascist state. I am your host, Sandy Frank, and today we are going to be talking about a lot of things, but mostly we're going to be continuing our discussion of WikiLeaks Vault 7, kind of the story of the year, and how it's not being covered at all within the corporate media. And today we're also going to be talking about the women's protests going on all around the nation and all around the world, and we're also going to be talking about the healthcare debate, which is really the thing that is filling up most of the corporate media these days, now as a tactic to divert from the WikiLeaks revelations, but has been used as this kind of controlled opposition issue, the healthcare thing, obviously for years and years and years now, but definitely for the last few months. We have, of course, quote-unquote Trump care being terrible and being no actual healthcare plan, but we're talking about the corporate media debating with their controlled opposition to Republican healthcare plans, because Obamacare is, of course, Romney care. Obamacare is nothing but, Romney Care was created by the Heritage Foundation, a neocon organization, and then championed by Mitt Romney in Massachusetts, and then taken on by Obama. And using the corporate media, they lied about it, saying it was a progressive plan. The corporate media did, when of course it's an insurance-based privatized plan made to profit the big insurance and big pharma. Not, it's obviously nothing like the practical investment that is single-payer Medicare for all, like the rest of the industrialized world and many other nations have. Of course, Obamacare is it's nothing but a service to the insurance companies, and that's about it. But we have this controlled opposition discussion constantly within the corporate media about how great the Affordable Care Act is, and how important, these same people who will defend the Affordable Care Act, the words single payer or Medicare for all will never even, touch their lips. And we know why. It's because this is not actual progressive media. And it's not, in any way, not just progressive media, because of course it's not just progressives who want single payer. I think it's about 75 to 80% of the country is, wants this type of healthcare like the rest of the world has. But this is controlled opposition, folks. It's just all they're doing. A big part of what they're doing is running out the clock. To use the sports analogy, the corporate media, the dichotomy corporate media that is just one corrupted body, is doing nothing but trying to divert attention from the way the country is going, the way people are really turning off CNN and MSNBC and NPR, how they're really rejecting these fake progressive corporate media outlets. You see the corporate media tried to create the term alt-left to define actual progressives, but as a response, the actual left, and not just the left, free thinkers from all ideologies are now referring to these corporate media outlets as alt-progressive, which is really what they are. You think of alternative facts, these people who lie and say they're progressives, they're nothing but alternative progressives, meaning that they are corporate fascists, of course. So, the way to single payer and the way to stop Trump's ridiculously fascistic healthcare policy, is for an independent people's movement. And one of our demands through our massive civil disobedience is to demand single-payer Medicare for all now. As in, taking Mike Pence and Paul Ryan's heads and bashing them against the pavement until they make a piece of legislation that guarantees Medicare for all. And we don't stop there. Of course, our goal is to get the Mike Pences and the Paul Ryans and the Chuck Schumers and the Nancy Pelosi's out of our government and into maximum security prisons, which is another big part of our independent people's movement. But, if your news source is covering the controlled opposition healthcare debate right now, which, the word single payer doesn't even pop up in the entire debate that occupies the 24-hour news cycle, they're covering this fake healthcare debate, and they're giving you Donald Trump news, not the Donald Trump show, for 24 hours, and they're not at all covering the WikiLeaks Vault 7 release that is honestly, the biggest news story of the year. This is Watergate, folks. This is like, a 1,000 times Watergate, and this isn't even 1% of what WikiLeaks is planning to release with Vault 7. If this is what your news source is doing, most of the time corporate news sources, then it's time to turn off that news source and don't go back to it, and divest from it. Get your cancel your subscription to the TV or whatever online, whatever you're subscribed to. It's time to divest. And even, selling your TV, obviously, what we've learned from WikiLeaks, sell your TV and your Xbox and anything computerized is being used against you. I mean, we still need ways of communication for our people's movement, but wherever you can divest, and wherever you can, get the corporate propaganda out of your brain, do so. It will greatly benefit you. But that's just it. The corporate media is completely denying the story of the year. And if your news source is doing it, you know you have a problem there with your news source. If they're denying what WikiLeaks has done, and of course you're seeing it all over the place, especially all over Twitter. You're seeing these corporate pundits and these establishment lackeys just completely trying to discredit WikiLeaks, trying to, the big argument is that WikiLeaks never releases anything on Russia or Trump, and that's not true. They've released thousands upon thousands upon thousands of leaked documents on the Russian government and Donald Trump's close allies and all this. So more complete lies coming out of the, on top of their lies about healthcare, about the Affordable Care Act being at all something to defend. On top of those lies, we now have lies and prevarications regarding WikiLeaks. So yeah, now's the time to divest, but we'll talk more about healthcare in later videos. But to be honest, I mean, we very much need single-payer Medicare for all as soon as possible, because thousands and thousands are dying. But you could see Medicare as small potatoes to actually taking back our democracy. Once we have our democracy, we can do anything. Especially we get Medicare for all when 75 to 80% of the people in the country want Medicare for all. That's the point of a fucking democracy. It's the point of having one, is to, meet the demands of the people. And then also a republic. We want a democratic republic. A republic being, ruled by experts who are, and all the experts in the medical and scientific communities also say Medicare for all is the best system with the lowest cost, that is bringing down the cost and getting the best coverage. So when I say democratic republic, what I always refer to it as is the system that will install communism, which is the collectivization of resources to meet, to be allocated to meet the needs of all people. That's what communism is. It's a scientific system for meeting the needs of all, meeting the needs of the environment, and creating a symbiosis that promotes the standards of living and all this. But we'll move on to briefly talk about the women's protest all over the nation, and of course, part of the problem with any protest is who they're backed by and what their actual goals are, especially for things like Occupy Wall Street, the Women's March right after the inauguration. We're talking about corporate-backed protests that, because they're corporate-backed, they don't have any real demands, and they don't have any real goals that they're working towards, because they're controlled by corporations who are really just trying to create the distractions, and who are really just trying to give the veneer of some sort of political action, when in reality they're just sowing more partisanship and divisiveness in our world. But it's not to say that there aren't many people who are protesting today who actually are fighting for things that will actually bring women's equality and things like women's equality to fruition. Take, for example, someone who's demonstrating today, Kshama Sawant of the Green Party in Washington. We have people like Jill Stein and Kshama Sawant and many others who are actually leading protests today with goals for pay equity for women, and medical equality for women, which is something to be afraid of with Mike Pence and Donald Trump in our government, and of course Barack Obama. And Hillary Clinton in our government, people who vehemently fought against single payer, maternity leave, all these things. So when we talk about getting actual equality for women, we need to understand that the establishment government is our foe. It's not just Pence, and it's not just Trump, and it's not just Paul Ryan. So that, this is the point of an independent movement, but this is the importance of organizing our independent people's movement to so we can actually create civil disobedience and create protests and strike and walkouts and boycotts for goals that will actually lead to a more equitable world, which is what we want. But yeah, that doesn't mean don't protest. That means go out with protesters who have goals and who are looking for unity, rather than people who are only, the corporatists who are only backing these protests to create more divisiveness and to not actually want to bring people together in any type of way. So, Kshama Sawant over the likes of Hillary Clinton and Neera Tanden, and even today, a lot of the women's protests are receiving backlash from the quote-unquote democratic establishment, who are criticizing the strikes of women and are trying to hurt these protests, because a lot of the people protesting are protesting against actual problems and are actually demanding things that help women's rights, not just corporatist photo opportunities on MSNBC. We have many white feminists and faux feminists and corporate feminists, which is to not say they're feminists at all, they're corporate fascists, who are attacking people like Kshama Sawant. A lot of people on Twitter, they're saying that protest is over and hashtags are the new protest, which is bullshit and nonsense. A lot of these corporate fake feminists are bringing up things like, the hashtag delete Uber as the real new form of protest, when they don't even realize that protest and that hashtag started from especially people within Uber who put themselves in the street and put themselves, physically out there to protest, something divisive, as in, wah, 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 Donald Trump and Uber are friends. But of course there were a lot of people within Uber who were protesting Uber just being a shitty company for workers and for riders. We don't want to demean entire protests by any means, because usually 90 to 95% of the people in the Women's March after the inauguration do want equality for women. But a lot of people are tricked by corporate media into supporting things that don't actually bring equality for women or for everyone. They're just corporate media psyops meant to, prolong actual revolutionary change. So, by all means, go out into the streets and organize and protest. But make sure you're protesting the establishment, and make sure, your demands are clear about what you want and what your goals are, or you'll just be used as a little pawn by the corporatists to get what they want. So, good on everybody who's actually fighting for women's rights today. And shame on the corporate media for existing. But yeah, we need organization. But now we move on to WikiLeaks. We move on to further discussion about how this is the biggest news story of the year again, and how the corporate media is either denying it or saying it's propaganda, or saying it's Russia, or saying that, getting defensive when people criticize them for not covering it, and saying, we have been covering, just lying. We have been covering it, just flat out lying, is what a lot of this is. So I want to give a more rounded understanding of what these leaks are. We first, of course, say that WikiLeaks has stated that what was released yesterday on the 7th, it's March 8th today, is only 1% of what is less than 1% of what they actually plan to release. And that's amazing how much we've learned yesterday of WikiLeaks, of Watergate times 1,000, which was released. Pentagon Papers on the drug from Limitless. It's really shocking. So we're gonna look over the actual press release coming out of WikiLeaks to get full information about what it is and what's to come. And I did a video yesterday on it. Check that one out too. I went over a lot of information excuse me, regarding what was in the WikiLeaks, but we're just going to look at what WikiLeaks has to say. Alright, so here's the press release. Today, Tuesday, 7th, March 2017, WikiLeaks begins its new series of leaks on the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, codenamed Vault 7 by WikiLeaks. It is the largest ever publication of confidential documents on the agency. The first full part of the series, Year Zero, comprises 8,761 documents and files from an isolated high-security network situated inside the CIA's Center for Cyber Intelligence in Langley, Virginia. It follows an introductory disclosure last month of CIA targeting French political parties and candidates in the lead-up to the 2012 presidential election. Recently, the CIA lost control of the majority of its hacking arsenal, including malware, viruses, trojans, weaponized zero-day exploits, malware remote control systems, and associated documentation. This extraordinary collection, which amounts to more than several hundred million lines of code, gives its possessor the entire hacking capacity of the CIA. The archive appears to have been circulated among former U.S. government hackers and contractors in an unauthorized manner, one of whom has provided WikiLeaks with portions of the archive. Year Zero introduces the scope and direction of the CIA's global covert hacking program, its malware arsenal, and dozens of zero-day weaponized exploits against a wide range of U.S. and European company products include Apple's iPhone, Google's Android, and Microsoft's Windows, and even Samsung TVs, which are turned into covert microphones. Since 2001, the CIA has gained political and budgetary preeminence over the U.S. National Security Agency, the NSA. The CIA found itself building not just its own infamous drone fleet, but a very different type of covert globe-scanning force, its own substantial fleet of hackers. The agency's hacking division freed it from having to disclose its own controversial operations to the NSA, its primary bureaucratic rival, in order to draw on the NSA's hacking capabilities. By the end of 2016, the CIA's hacking division, which formerly falls under the agency's Center for Cyber Intelligence, the CCI, had over 5,000 registered users and had produced more than 1,000 hacking systems, trojans, viruses, and other weaponized malware. Such is the scale of the CIA's undertaking that by 2016, its hackers had utilized more code than that used to run Facebook. The CIA had created, in effect, its own NSA with even less accountability and without publicly answering the question as to whether such a massive budgetary spend on duplicating the capacities of a rival agency could be justified. Again, this is hundreds of billions of dollars of our money used without any type of public transparency. In a statement to WikiLeaks, the source details policy questions that they say urgently need to be debated in public, including whether the CIA's hacking capabilities exceed its mandated powers and the problem of public oversight of the agency. The source wishes to initiate a public debate about security, creation, use, proliferation, and democratic control of cyber weapons. Once a single cyber weapon is loose, it can be spread around the world in seconds to be used by rival states, cyber mafia, and teenage hackers alike. Julian Assange, WikiLeaks editor, stated that there is an extreme proliferation risk in the development of cyber weapons. Comparisons can be drawn between uncontrolled proliferation of such weapons, which results from the inability to contain them combined with the high market value, and the global arms trade. But the significance of year zero goes well beyond the choice between cyber war and cyber peace. The disclosure is also exceptional from a political, legal, and forensic perspective. WikiLeaks has carefully reviewed the year zero disclosure and published substantive CIA documentation while avoiding the distribution of armed cyber weapons until a consensus emerges on the technical and political nature of the CIA's program and how such weapons should be analyzed, disarmed, and published. WikiLeaks has also decided to redact and anonymize some identifying information in year zero for in-depth analysis. These redactions include tens of thousands of CIA targets and attack machines throughout Latin America, Europe, and the United States. While we are aware of the imperfect results of any approach chosen, we remain committed to our publishing model and note that the quantity of published pages in Vault 7, Part 1, Year 0, already eclipses the total number of pages published over the first 3 years of Edward Snowden's NSA leaks. So, very huge. We'll now look at WikiLeaks' own analysis of this leak. So, analysis: CIA malware targets iPhone, Android, smart TVs. CIA malware and hacking tools are built by EDG, Engineering Development Group, a software development group within CCI, Center for Cyber Intelligence, a department belonging to CIA's DDI, Directorate for Digital Innovation. The DDI is one of the 5 major directorates of the CIA. And they have an organizational chart of the CIA that we can look at later. The EDG is responsible for the development, testing, and operational support of all backdoors, exploits, malicious payloads, trojans, viruses, and any other kind of malware used by the CIA in its covert operations worldwide. The increasing sophistication of surveillance techniques has drawn comparisons with George Orwell's 1984, but Weeping Angel, developed by the CIA's Embedded Devices Branch, EDB, which infests smart TVs, transforming them into covert microphones, is surely its most emblematic realization. Because, of course, in 1984, he's afraid the TV can hear him, and, he's most likely right, according to the narrative of them knowing everything he was up to. This is 1984. But it's not just TVs. Of course, I'm sure we'll keep learning as these leaks come out, and what I'm sure, even if the leaks don't show it, but anything computerized, and anything electronic, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised could put out some sort of signal that, could gather information in some sort of way. Of course, it's being utilized. I mean, this is how warfare and cyber warfare works, of course, especially with the CIA. But let's continue. The attack against Samsung smart TVs was developed in cooperation with the United Kingdom's MI5 BTSS. After infestation, Weeping Angel places the target TV in a fake off mode so that the owner falsely believes the TV is off when it is on. In fake off mode, the TV operates as a bug, recording conversations in the room and sending them over the internet to a covert CIA server. As of October 2014, the CIA was also looking at infecting the vehicle control systems used by modern cars and trucks. The purpose of such control is not specified, but it would permit the CIA to engage in nearly undetectable assassinations. People are talking about Michael Hastings of the reporter killed in the car crash. He was writing about Obama's spying program. He was killed mysteriously in a car crash. I don't really know that much about it, so I won't comment too much on it. I just know a lot of people are bringing up these questions of whether he was assassinated by the CIA, which wouldn't surprise me in the least. But I didn't bring it up yesterday. It kind of slipped my mind when I was going through the article I was looking at. But yeah, people now want a new investigation into the assassination to the murder, is what people are saying, of Michael Hastings. But we continue. The CIA's mobile devices branch, the MDB, developed numerous attacks to remotely hack and control popular smartphones. Infected phones can be instructed to send the CIA the user's geolocation, audio, and text communications, as well as covertly activate the phone's camera and microphone. Despite iPhone's minority share, 14.5%, of the global smartphone market in 2016, a specialized unit in the CIA's mobile development branch produces malware to infest, control, and exfiltrate data from iPhones and other Apple products running iOS, such as iPads. CIA's arsenal includes numerous local and remote 0 days developed by CIA or obtained from GCHQ, NSA, FBI, or purchased from cyber arms contractors such as Bait Shop. The disproportionate focus on iOS may be explained by the popularity of the iPhone among social, political, diplomatic, and business elites. A similar unit targets Google's Android, which is used to run the majority of the world's smartphones, give or take 85%, including Samsung, HTC, and Sony. 1.5 billion Android-powered phones were sold last year. Year Zero shows, as of 2016, the CIA has 24 weaponized Android 0 days, which it has developed itself and obtained from GCHQ, NSA, and cyber arms contractors. These techniques permit the CIA to bypass the encryption of WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, Weibo, Confide, and Cloakman. By hacking the smartphones that they run on and collecting audio and message traffic before encryption is applied. We move on to CIA malware targets Windows, OS X, Linux and routers. The CIA also runs a very substantial effort to infect and control Microsoft Windows users with this malware. This includes multiple local and remote weaponized 0 days, air-gap jumping viruses such as Hammer Drill, which infects software distributed on CDs, DVDs, infectors for removable media such as USBs, systems to hide data in images or in covert disk areas, Brutal Kangaroo, and to keep its malware infestations going. Many of these infection efforts are pulled together by the CIA's Automated Implant Branch, AIB, which has developed several attack systems for automated infestation and control of CIA malware such as Assassin and Medusa. Attacks against internet infrastructure and web servers are developed by the CIA's Network Devices Branch, the NDB. The CIA has developed automated multi-platform malware attack and control systems covering Windows, Mac OS X, Solaris, Linux, and more, such as EDB's Hive and the related cutthroat and swindle tools, which are described in the examples sections below. We look at CIA hoarded vulnerabilities, parentheses, 0 days. In the wake of Edward Snowden's leaks about the NSA, the U.S. technology industry secured a commitment from the Obama administration that the executive would disclose on an ongoing basis, rather than hoard, serious vulnerabilities, exploits, bugs, or 0 days to Apple, Google, Microsoft, and other U.S.-based manufacturers. Serious vulnerabilities not disclosed to the manufacturers places huge swatches of the population and critical infrastructure at risk to foreign intelligence or cyber criminals who independently discover or hear rumors of the vulnerability. If the CIA can discover such vulnerabilities, so can others. The U.S. government's commitment to the vulnerabilities equities process came after significant lobbying by U.S. technology companies, who risk losing their share of global market over real and perceived hidden vulnerabilities. The government stated that it would disclose all pervasive vulnerabilities discovered after 2010 on an ongoing basis. So again, this might be where we get a big amount of change from what the CIA is doing to a more transparent world. You know, they're pissing off the CEOs of some of the most powerful tech companies on the earth. You know, this might be, you know, we might be able to utilize these corporatists to really go after these deep staters for what they're doing and kind of pit them against each other for our own transparency in our government and to actually get our democracy back. But it's just an idea. You know, a lot of journalists are writing about that. Year Zero documents show that the CIA breached the Obama administration's commitments. Many of the vulnerabilities used in the CIA's cyber arsenal are pervasive, and some may already have been found by rival intelligence agencies or cyber criminals. As an example, specific CIA malware revealed in Year Zero is able to penetrate, infest, and control both the Android phone and iPhone software that runs or has run presidential Twitter accounts. The CIA attacks the software by using undisclosed security vulnerabilities, 0 days, possessed by the CIA. But if the CIA can hack these phones, then so can everyone else who has obtained or discovered the vulnerability. As long as the CIA keeps these vulnerabilities concealed from Apple and Google, who make the phones, they will not be fixed, and the phones will remain hackable. So again, you know, not disclosing these vulnerabilities is what could lead to the change. The same vulnerabilities exist for the population at large, including the U.S. Cabinet, Congress, top CEOs, systems administrators, security officers, and engineers. By hiding these security flaws from manufacturers like Apple and Google, the CIA ensures that it can hack everyone at the expense of leaving everyone hackable. Cyber war programs are a serious proliferation risk. Cyber weapons are not possible to keep under effective control. While nuclear proliferation has been restrained by the enormous costs and visible infrastructure involved in assembling enough fissile material to produce a critical nuclear mass, cyber weapons, once developed, are hard to retain. Cyber weapons are, in fact, just computer programs which can be pirated like any other. Since they are entirely compromised of information, they can be copied quickly with no marginal cost. Securing such weapons is particularly difficult, since the same people who develop and use them have the skills to exfiltrate copies without leaving traces, sometimes by using the very same weapons against the organizations that contain them. These are substantial price incentives for government hackers and consultants to obtain copies, since there is a global vulnerability market that will pay hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars for copies of such weapons. Similarly, contractors and companies who obtain such weapons sometimes use them for their own purposes, obtaining advantage over the competitors and selling hacking services. Over the last 3 years, the United States intelligence sector, which consists of government agencies such as the CIA and NSA and their contractors such as Booz Allen Hamilton, has been subject to unprecedented series of data exfiltrations by its own workers. A number of intelligence community members, not yet publicly named, have been arrested or subject to federal criminal investigations in separate incidents. Most visibly, on February 8, 2017, a U.S. federal grand jury indicted Harold T. Martin III with 20 counts of mishandling classified information. The Department of Justice alleged that it seized more than 50,000 gigabytes of information from Harold T. Martin III that he had obtained from classified programs at the NSA and CIA, including the source code for numerous hacking tools. Once a single cyber weapon is loose, it can spread around the world in seconds to be used by peers, states, cyber mafia, and teenage hackers alike. So we move on to U.S. consulate in Frankfurt is a covert CIA hacking base. In addition to its own operations in Langley, Virginia, the CIA has also uses the U.S. consulate in Frankfurt as a covert base for its hackers covering Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. CIA hackers operating out of the Frankfurt Consulate Center for Cyber Intelligence Europe, or the CCIE, are given diplomatic passports and State Department cover. The instructions for incoming CIA hackers make Germany's counterintelligence efforts appear inconsequential. Breeze through German customs because you have your cover for action story down pat, and all they did was stamp your passport. Not sure what this is, a quote from something. I think it's from the actual leaks. Two earlier WikiLeaks publications give further detail on CIA approaches to customs and secondary screening procedures. Once in Frankfurt, CIA hackers can travel without further border checks to 25 European countries that are part of the Schengen open border area, including France, Italy, and Switzerland. A number of the CIA's electronic attack methods are designed for physical proximity. These attack methods are able to penetrate high-security networks that are disconnected from the internet, such as a police record database. In these cases, a CIA officer, agent, or allied intelligence officer acting under instructions physically infiltrates the targeted workplace. The attacker is provided with a USB containing malware developed for the CIA for this purpose, which is inserted into the targeted computer. The attacker then infects and exfiltrates data to removable media. For example, the CIA attack system Fine Dining provides 24 decoy applications for CIA spies to use. To witnesses, the spy appears to be running a program showing videos, presenting slides, like Prezi, that's funny, playing a computer game, Breakout 2, or even running a fake virus scanner, like Kaspersky, McAfee, or Sophos. But while the decoy application is on screen, the underlying system is automatically infected and ransacked. We move on to how the CIA dramatically increased proliferation risks. In what is securely one of the most astounding intelligence-owned goals in living memory, the CIA structured its classification regime such that the most market valuable part of Vault 7, the CIA's weaponized malware, listening posts, and command control systems, the agency has little legal resource. The CIA has made these systems unclassified. While the CIA chose to make its cyber arsenal unclassified, reveals how concepts developed for military use do not easily cross over to the battlefield of cyber war. To attack its targets, the CIA usually requires that it implants communicate with their control programs over the internet. If CIA implants, command and control, and listening post software were classified, then CIA officers would be prosecuted or dismissed for violating rules that prohibit placing classified information on the internet. Consequently, the CIA has secretly made most of its cyber spying war code unclassified. The US government is not able to assert copyright either, due to restrictions in the US Constitution. This means that cyber arms manufacturers and computer hackers can freely pirate these weapons if they are obtained. The CIA has primarily had to rely on obfuscation to protect its malware secrets. Conventional weapons, such as missiles, may be fired at the enemy. Proximity to or impact with the target detonates the ordnance, including its classified parts. Hence, military personnel do not violate classification rules by firing ordnance with classified parts. Ordnance will likely explode. If it does not, that is not the operator's intent. Over the last decade, U.S. hacking operations has been increasingly dressed up in military jargon to tap into Department of Defense funding streams. For instance, attempted malware injections or implant drops are being called fires as if a weapon was being fired. However, the analogy is questionable. Unlike bullets, bombs, or missiles, most CIA malware is designed to live for days or even years after it has reached its target. CIA malware does not explode on impact, but rather permanently infests its targets. In order to infect a target's device, copies of the malware must be placed on the target's devices, giving physical possession of the malware to the target. To exfiltrate data back to the CIA or to await further instructions, the malware must communicate with CIA command and control systems placed on internet-connected servers, but such servers are typically not approved to hold classified information, so CIA command and control systems are also made unclassified. A successful attack on a target's computer system is more like a series of complex stock maneuvers in a hostile takeover bid, or the careful planting of rumors in order to gain control over an organization's leadership rather than firing of a weapons system. If there is a military analogy to be made, the infestation of a target is perhaps akin to the execution of a whole series of military maneuvers against the target's territory, including observation, infiltration, occupation, and exploitation. We go on to evading forensics and antivirus. A series of standards lay out CIA malware infestation patterns which are likely to assist forensic crime scenes investigators, as well as Apple, Microsoft, Google, Samsung, Nokia, BlackBerry, Siemens, and antivirus companies attribute and defend against attacks. Tradecraft do's and don'ts contain CIA rules on how its malware should be written to avoid fingerprints implicating the CIA, US government, or its winning partner companies in forensic review. Similar secret standards cover the use of encryption to hide CIA hacker and malware communication, describing targets and exfiltrated data, as well as executing payloads and persisting in the target's machines over time. CIA hackers developed successful attacks against most well-known antivirus programs. These are documented in AV Defeat's Personal Security Products, Detecting and Defeating PSPs, and PSP Debugger RE Avoidance. For example, Komodo was defeated by CIA malware placing itself in the Windows recyclable bin. while Komodo 6X has a gaping hole of doom. CIA hackers discussed what the NSA's equation group hackers did wrong and how the CIA malware's makers could avoid similar exposure. Okay, so that's a brief look at everything that the WikiLeaks is covering. We'll go into more of what WikiLeaks released in its first statement probably in the next video. That they then go into the umbrage program, into fine dining program, into the Hive program, and many other different things. We'll cover that in the next video, but what all of that really gives us a view on is really the scope of what the CIA is able to do, especially with this malware. They are of course working outside of the United States Constitution to really just strengthen the sphere of influence that the United States has over the United States government has over us all, really. But yeah, as all of that shows you, this is one of the biggest news stories of the year. It's really ridiculous how this hasn't led to a complete clearing out of the intelligence community. Just a complete clearing of house of all. Of course it doesn't, though. We of course see the former CIA director Michael Hayden, a warmonger and a torturer and a traitor and a treasonous person, making all of the corporate news circuits, denying all of this is happening or happened, when we now have the concrete evidence that yes, it has been happening and will continue to happen unless we do something about it. Michael Hayden was on Stephen Colbert's show, that Stephen Colbert, the corporate fraud, and all over corporate media, just spreading, just like he did with Iraq, spreading lies and lies and lies, lies upon lies upon lies. So we really need to go out into the streets and demand something be done. We see people protesting for women today, which is great, but we really need an anti-war protest, a anti-deep state protest, and we need a pro-government transparency protest, and all of these things. And we need to understand that it's not going to happen from inside the corporate media, and we can't let it happen within the echo chamber of the corporate media, who, especially with the healthcare debate, it's nothing but constant, disgusting nonsense that the corporate media keeps smacking, like this little political football, and playing this game with people's lives, when we know single payer Medicare and expanding on single payer Medicare is the way to raise the standards of living for for all people, as if it's some mystery. But this is what's happening in our world. Something as explosive as this leak comes out, and of course the corporatists have nothing to say, and it's exactly why we need to stand up and why we need to demand change and go out into the streets. So good on you for protesting today. If you're actually protesting for women's equality, and our next protest needs to be anti-war and anti-corruption. So thank you for listening. Please like and share and comment and subscribe and whatever. It'd be great for me. And I am Sandy Frank, and I will see you in the next one.